There are people who enter your life like a gentle breeze, bringing peace, clarity, and strength. But there are also those who leave behind confusion, fear, and silent destruction. The most dangerous people are not always loud, angry, or obvious. They often wear kindness as a mask while slowly draining your energy, your confidence, and even your sense of reality. If you cannot recognize these people, you may spend years fighting battles you never chose. Today, we will explore the 7 signs that reveal a truly evil person, not to make you fear others, but to help you protect your mind, your peace, and the life you are meant to build. One of the clearest signs you are dealing with a truly evil person is their ability to manipulate others without feeling even the smallest amount of guilt. Manipulation is different from simple persuasion. Persuasion respects your freedom to choose, while manipulation quietly steals that freedom. It is designed to make you believe that every decision is your own, even when someone else has carefully guided your thoughts, emotions, and actions toward their desired outcome. This is why manipulation is so dangerous. It rarely announces itself. It moves in silence, hiding behind smiles, compliments, promises, and carefully chosen words. At first, everything may seem completely normal. The person appears friendly, helpful, and understanding. They seem to know exactly what to say whenever you feel uncertain or vulnerable. They make you feel special, as though they understand you better than anyone else. You begin to trust them because trust is naturally built through kindness and consistency. A manipulative person understands this very well. They know that people lower their guard when they feel accepted. Instead of earning your trust honestly, they use it as a tool to gain control. The most unsettling part is that they often study your emotions with incredible attention. They notice your fears, your insecurities, your dreams, and even the things you rarely tell anyone else. While a compassionate person uses that knowledge to support you, a manipulator stores it like information that can later become a weapon. They remember what makes you feel guilty. They remember what makes you afraid of being rejected. They remember what makes you desperate for approval. Then, when the moment is right, they use those weaknesses to influence your decisions without you realizing it. You may notice yourself apologizing for things you never actually did wrong. Somehow, every disagreement becomes your fault. Every problem is explained in a way that leaves you questioning your own memory, your own judgment, and eventually your own identity. This is not because you suddenly became incapable of thinking clearly. It happens because manipulation slowly replaces confidence with doubt. The more you doubt yourself, the easier you become to control. Manipulative people are experts at creating emotional confusion. One day, they reward you with kindness, affection, or praise. The next day, they become distant, cold, or critical without explanation. This unpredictable behavior keeps you constantly seeking their approval. Instead of asking whether they deserve a place in your life, you begin asking what you need to do to earn their kindness again. Without realizing it, your emotional balance starts depending on someone who intentionally keeps you unstable. Another common tactic is making you feel responsible for their emotions. If they become angry, they insist you caused it. If they feel disappointed, they expect you to fix it. If they make a harmful decision, they somehow convince you that your actions forced them into it. Over time, you carry emotional burdens that were never yours to carry. You spend more energy protecting their feelings than protecting your own peace. They also know how to use guilt with remarkable precision. They may remind you of everything they have supposedly done for you, even when those actions came with hidden expectations. They make you feel selfish whenever you set healthy boundaries. If you say no, they accuse you of being ungrateful. If you choose your own priorities, they suggest you have abandoned them. Little by little, Your ability to make independent decisions weakens because every choice becomes tied to unnecessary guilt. A manipulative person rarely needs to raise their voice. Their greatest weapon is psychological control. They understand that a calm lie can sometimes cause more damage than an angry argument. They plant small seeds of doubt that continue growing long after the conversation ends. You replay their words in your mind, wondering if perhaps they were right. This constant mental conflict steals your energy because your attention becomes trapped in questions instead of clear answers. Many people believe manipulation only happens in romantic relationships, but it can appear anywhere. It can exist between friends, family members, co-workers, leaders, or anyone who desires control over another person. The environment changes, but the pattern remains the same. Someone slowly shapes your thoughts until you begin living according to their desires instead of your own values. One reason manipulation is difficult to recognize is because it often arrives wrapped in generosity. A manipulative person may offer gifts, support, opportunities, or advice. None of these actions are wrong by themselves. The problem appears when every act of kindness creates an invisible debt. Suddenly, you feel obligated to agree with them because they were kind to you. You feel unable to disagree because you fear losing their approval or support. Their generosity becomes another form of control rather than genuine compassion. They are also skilled at presenting themselves differently, depending on who is watching. Around others, they appear patient, generous, and respectful. In private, they become controlling, dismissive, or emotionally cruel. This creates another painful layer of confusion, because when you try to explain your experience, people struggle to believe you. They only know the charming version of the person. Meanwhile, you are left questioning whether your own experiences are even real. Perhaps the most dangerous consequence of manipulation is that it disconnects you from your inner voice. Every human being has intuition, a quiet sense that notices when something feels wrong. Manipulation trains you to ignore that voice. Instead of trusting your instincts, you begin trusting the manipulator's interpretation of reality. Eventually, you ask for their opinion before making even simple decisions because your confidence has been slowly taken away. A truly evil person does not manipulate because they accidentally developed bad communication habits. They manipulate because control gives them satisfaction. They do not lose sleep over the confusion they create. They rarely feel genuine remorse for the emotional damage they leave behind. While others experience guilt after causing pain, they often justify their behavior by believing the end always justifies the means. That absence of conscience is what makes manipulation so destructive. It allows them to continue harming others without the internal resistance that stops most people from crossing moral boundaries. Another powerful sign you are dealing with a truly evil person is that they find satisfaction in the suffering of others. Most people naturally feel discomfort when they see someone in pain. Even if they do not know the person, they often experience empathy, a quiet emotional response that makes them want to help, comfort, or at least avoid causing additional harm. A truly evil person operates very differently. Instead of feeling compassion, they may enjoy watching others struggle because another person's pain makes them feel powerful, superior, or entertained. This does not always appear in dramatic or obvious ways. It rarely begins with extreme acts of cruelty. Instead, it often reveals itself through small moments that many people overlook. They smile when someone is embarrassed. They laugh at another person's failure, even when the situation is serious. They spread painful rumors simply to watch the emotional consequences unfold. They create unnecessary conflict and quietly observe as relationships fall apart around them. The suffering itself becomes a source of satisfaction rather than something to prevent. One reason this behavior is difficult to recognize is because these individuals often disguise their intentions as jokes. When someone becomes hurt by their words, they immediately respond by saying the other person is too sensitive or cannot take a joke. This shifts attention away from their behavior and places responsibility on the victim instead. Over time, people begin questioning whether their emotional reactions are valid, while the cruel person continues repeating the same harmful behavior without accountability. A person who enjoys the pain of others often has little respect for emotional boundaries. They know exactly which subjects cause discomfort, yet they intentionally bring them into conversations. They remind people of past failures, personal losses, insecurities, or painful experiences simply because they know those memories still carry emotional weight. Rather than offering encouragement, they reopen emotional wounds that were slowly beginning to heal. You may also notice that they become unusually interested whenever someone experiences hardship. They ask detailed questions that appear caring on the surface, but their curiosity is not motivated by compassion. Instead, they collect information about another person's struggles because it gives them something to discuss, criticize, or even use later as leverage. They often enjoy being the first to spread bad news because it allows them to participate in someone else's pain without experiencing any guilt. There is also a subtle pleasure they experience when another person's success begins to fade. If someone receives recognition, achieves an important goal, or finds happiness, the evil person may secretly hope something goes wrong. When difficulties finally appear, they feel relieved rather than sympathetic. They may even pretend to offer comfort while quietly enjoying the disappointment unfolding before them. This hidden satisfaction reveals far more about their character than the comforting words they choose to speak. Another common pattern is creating situations where others are likely to fail. Instead of helping someone succeed, they withhold important information, give misleading advice, or deliberately increase confusion. When the inevitable mistake happens, they step back and criticize the outcome as though they had nothing to do with it. Their goal was never cooperation. Their goal was to witness failure while protecting their own image. A truly evil person often sees kindness as weakness. When someone shows forgiveness, patience, or understanding, they do not appreciate those qualities. Instead, they see opportunities to push further. They believe compassionate people are easier to exploit because they are more willing to give second chances. Rather than respecting mercy, they repeatedly abuse it until the other person becomes emotionally exhausted. Their cruelty is not always loud. Sometimes it exists in quiet neglect. They ignore people when support is desperately needed. They intentionally exclude others from important conversations. They remain silent while someone is unfairly blamed, even when they know the truth. Watching another person struggle without offering help becomes another form of emotional satisfaction because they enjoy the sense of control it provides. Envy also plays a significant role in this behavior. Whenever someone possesses happiness, confidence, strong relationships, or meaningful achievements, the evil person feels threatened instead of inspired. Rather than improving themselves, they attempt to reduce others to their own emotional level. If they cannot experience peace, they become determined to disturb the peace of everyone around them. This creates an environment where negativity spreads faster than encouragement. You may notice that after spending time with such a person, your emotional energy feels unusually heavy. Conversations that should leave you feeling understood instead leave you feeling criticized or diminished. Moments that should be celebrated somehow become opportunities for comparison or negativity. Instead of lifting people higher, they consistently pull others downward because seeing confidence disappear gives them a sense of satisfaction. These individuals are also skilled at encouraging conflict between other people. They may tell one friend what another supposedly said, exaggerate misunderstandings, or intentionally leave out important details that would resolve the situation. Then they quietly observe as trust begins to collapse. While others experience stress, sadness, and confusion, they enjoy being at the center of the emotional chaos they created. Another disturbing characteristic is their lack of genuine remorse. If someone confronts them about the pain they caused, they rarely express sincere regret. They may deny everything, blame someone else, minimize the damage, or even accuse the victim of overreacting. Their concern is not the suffering itself, but protecting their own reputation. Even when they apologize, the apology often serves as another strategy to avoid consequences rather than an honest recognition of the harm they created. People who enjoy the pain of others often become surprisingly calm during another person's emotional breakdown. While compassionate individuals naturally feel concern, they remain emotionally detached or quietly satisfied. They observe tears, frustration, or despair without feeling any internal urgency to reduce the suffering. In some cases, they may even continue saying hurtful things simply to intensify the emotional reaction because they enjoy seeing how much control they have over another person's feelings. One of the greatest dangers of being around such individuals is that their negativity slowly influences your own mindset. Constant exposure to criticism, humiliation, conflict, and emotional cruelty can begin changing the way you see yourself and the world. You may become more anxious, more defensive, and less trusting, not because your nature has changed, but because you have spent too much time in the presence of someone who finds satisfaction in breaking the spirit of others instead of helping it grow. A truly evil person rarely builds their life on honesty. Instead, they rely on lies so frequently that deception becomes part of their identity. While most people lie occasionally out of fear, embarrassment, or a desire to avoid conflict, there is usually a sense of discomfort that follows. They recognize they have done something wrong, and many eventually feel the need to correct it. An evil person experiences deception differently. They lie with confidence, without guilt, and often without any real reason other than gaining control, protecting their image, or manipulating the people around them. One of the most dangerous aspects of constant lying is that it slowly changes your perception of reality. At first, the lies may seem small and harmless. They exaggerate stories, deny simple facts, or make promises they never intend to keep. Because the lies appear insignificant, people often ignore them. They assume everyone makes mistakes or forgets details from time to time. But these small acts of dishonesty gradually become larger until you begin questioning what is actually true. A person who constantly twists the truth understands that confusion creates power. When people cannot distinguish between truth and deception, they become easier to influence. Instead of trusting their own memory, they begin depending on the liar's version of events. This is exactly what the manipulator wants. Every lie weakens another person's confidence while strengthening their own control over the situation. You may notice that whenever they are confronted with evidence, they rarely admit the truth immediately. Instead, they create another explanation. If that explanation fails, they invent another one. If that one is exposed, they shift the conversation towards something completely unrelated. Their goal is not to discover the truth together. Their goal is simply to escape responsibility while leaving everyone else emotionally exhausted. These individuals are often incredibly convincing. They maintain eye contact, speak calmly, and tell their stories with remarkable confidence. Many people mistakenly believe confidence is proof of honesty, but confidence can easily be performed. Someone who has practiced deception for years becomes skilled at making lies sound believable. This is why trusting only appearances can be dangerous. Truth is not measured by confidence, but by consistency over time. Another common tactic is mixing truth with deception. Instead of creating completely false stories, they include enough accurate details to make the lie seem believable. Because part of the story is true, people naturally assume the rest must also be true. This technique makes deception much harder to detect because the lies are hidden inside genuine facts. They also have a habit of changing their stories depending on who is listening. One person hears one version, while someone else hears something entirely different. If the two people later compare conversations, the contradictions become obvious. When questioned about these differences, the liar simply claims there was a misunderstanding or accuses others of remembering incorrectly. Perhaps the most destructive form of deception is making another person doubt their own memory. After saying or doing something harmful, they later deny it completely. They insist the conversation never happened or claim you misunderstood everything. Even when you remember the details clearly, they speak with such certainty that you begin wondering whether your memory has somehow failed. Over time, this repeated distortion creates deep emotional uncertainty because you no longer feel confident in your own perception. Another warning sign is their relationship with promises. They make commitments easily because promises help them gain trust. They promise loyalty, support, honesty, or change whenever it benefits them. Yet once they receive what they wanted, those promises quietly disappear. When reminded of their own words, they invent excuses instead of accepting responsibility. Their promises are temporary tools rather than genuine commitments. They also lie to create a particular image of themselves. They exaggerate achievements, invent impressive experiences, or claim connections that do not exist. Their identity depends more on appearance than reality. They want admiration without earning it, respect without demonstrating integrity, and trust without proving reliability. Instead of developing genuine character, they construct an illusion designed to impress those around them. Many evil people also lie about others. They spread false information, distort conversations, and deliberately damage reputations. Sometimes they add only small changes to an otherwise true story, knowing that slight exaggerations are often enough to create conflict. By controlling information, they influence how people see one another, allowing distrust and division to grow while they remain hidden behind the scenes. Another disturbing characteristic is how easily they adapt their lies to different situations. If kindness helps them achieve their goal, they pretend to be compassionate. If appearing weak gains sympathy, they suddenly become the victim. If confidence earns respect, they present themselves as successful and fearless. Their personality seems to change depending on what benefits them most because authenticity is never their priority. Everything becomes a performance designed to achieve a desired outcome. People who constantly twist the truth often dislike honest individuals because honesty exposes deception. They may criticize people who speak directly, accuse truthful individuals of being difficult, or attempt to isolate anyone who questions their stories. Rather than appreciating transparency, they see it as a threat to the false reality they have carefully created. One reason many people remain trapped around habitual liars is hope. They believe the person will eventually become honest if given enough chances. They interpret repeated deception as temporary mistakes instead of recognizing a consistent pattern. But character is revealed through repeated behavior, not isolated words. Someone who lies over and over again is showing you how they choose to deal with reality. Living around constant deception creates emotional exhaustion. Every conversation requires careful analysis. Every promise raises uncertainty. Every explanation feels incomplete. Instead of experiencing peace, you begin living in a state of constant doubt because you never know which words can be trusted. This uncertainty slowly damages confidence, relationships, and emotional stability. A truly honest person values truth even when it is uncomfortable, because honesty builds trust over time. A truly evil person values only the outcome that benefits them. If telling the truth serves their interests, they tell it. If lying serves them better, they lie without hesitation. Their loyalty is not to truth or integrity, but to whatever gives them greater influence, greater control, or greater personal advantage. The greatest danger is not a single lie, but the gradual replacement of reality with a carefully constructed illusion that keeps everyone else confused while they remain firmly in control. One of the strongest signs you are dealing with a truly evil person is their complete refusal to accept responsibility for their actions. Every human being makes mistakes. We all say things we regret, make poor decisions, or unintentionally hurt others. What separates a person of character from someone with a destructive nature is not perfection, but accountability. A person with integrity admits when they are wrong, learns from their mistakes, and makes an effort to improve. A truly evil person does the opposite. They avoid responsibility at every opportunity because admitting fault would threaten the image they have created for themselves. When something goes wrong, they immediately begin searching for someone else to blame. It could be a family member, a friend, a coworker, circumstances, bad luck, or even the very person they harmed. In their mind, responsibility always belongs somewhere else. They become experts at creating explanations that make them appear innocent, while everyone around them carries the burden of their decisions. At first, these excuses may sound reasonable. They speak with confidence and provide detailed stories about why events unfolded the way they did. Because they present their version so convincingly, people often sympathize with them. But if you pay close attention over time, a clear pattern begins to emerge. No matter how many problems arise, they are never the one at fault. Somehow, every failure, every broken relationship, every conflict, and every disappointment always has another person to blame. One of their favorite tactics is portraying themselves as the victim. Even when they clearly caused harm, they quickly shift the conversation toward how unfairly they have been treated. Instead of discussing the pain they caused, everyone suddenly finds themselves comforting them. This emotional reversal is incredibly effective because compassionate people naturally respond to someone who appears hurt. Before long, the original issue is forgotten, and the person responsible receives sympathy instead of accountability. Another common strategy is minimizing the damage they caused. If they insult someone, they claim it was only a joke. If they break a promise, they insist it was not important. If they betray someone's trust, they argue that everyone makes mistakes. By reducing the seriousness of their actions, they attempt to make others feel unreasonable for expecting responsibility in the first place. You may also notice that they become defensive the moment someone questions their behavior. Instead of listening carefully, they interrupt, argue, or attack the character of the person confronting them. They believe that if they can discredit the messenger, they no longer have to deal with the message. Rather than reflecting on their own actions, they focus entirely on finding flaws in the other person. This refusal to accept responsibility slowly destroys trust. Healthy relationships depend on honesty, growth, and mutual respect. When one person consistently refuses to acknowledge mistakes, conflicts never truly get resolved. The same problems continue repeating because nothing is ever learned. Every disagreement becomes another cycle of blame instead of an opportunity for understanding. A truly evil person often rewrites history to avoid accountability. After making harmful choices, they later describe events in a completely different way. They remove details that expose their actions and emphasize information that makes them appear innocent. Over time, they repeat these revised stories so often that even they begin believing their own version of reality. This makes honest conversations almost impossible because facts are constantly being replaced by carefully edited memories. Another warning sign is how they respond when someone else succeeds while they fail. Instead of accepting that they need to improve, they immediately blame unfair circumstances, biased people, or bad timing. They rarely ask themselves what they could have done differently, because self-reflection requires humility. It is far easier for them to believe the world is against them than to admit their own shortcomings. People who avoid responsibility also struggle to apologize sincerely. They may say the words, "I'm sorry," but their apologies usually contain hidden excuses. They say things like, "I'm sorry you felt that way," or "I'm sorry if you misunderstood me." Notice how these statements quietly shift responsibility back onto the other person. Rather than acknowledging their own behavior, they imply that the real problem was someone else's reaction. Sometimes they apologize only because they fear consequences. If their reputation, relationships, or personal interests are at risk, they suddenly appear remorseful. But once the immediate danger passes, their behavior returns exactly as before. Their apology was never about understanding the pain they caused. It was simply another strategy to protect themselves from losing something valuable. Over time, being around someone like this becomes emotionally exhausting. You begin carrying responsibility for situations you did not create. You apologize simply to end arguments. You spend hours explaining your intentions while they never explain theirs. Every disagreement leaves you feeling guilty, confused, and emotionally drained because the balance of responsibility has become completely distorted. This pattern can also influence the people around them. Friends, family members, or co-worker may start accepting blame simply because it seems easier than arguing. They adjust their behavior to avoid conflict while the irresponsible person continues acting without consequences. In this environment, accountability disappears and unhealthy patterns become normal. A person who refuses responsibility also prevents personal growth. Growth begins with the willingness to recognize mistakes honestly. Without that willingness, there can be no meaningful change. They repeat the same harmful habits because they never believe those habits belong to them. Every lesson life offers is rejected before it can be learned. Perhaps the most revealing moment comes when undeniable evidence proves they were wrong. Instead of accepting the truth with humility, they continue searching for new excuses. They blame stress, misunderstandings, poor communication, other people's actions, or circumstances beyond their control. Even when reality leaves no room for denial, they still refuse to say, "I was wrong." This constant avoidance creates a life built on illusion instead of character. They become more concerned with appearing perfect than becoming better. Protecting their ego becomes more important than protecting their relationships. Winning every argument becomes more important than telling the truth. Their pride grows stronger while their integrity grows weaker. A truly wise person understands that admitting mistakes is not a sign of weakness. It requires courage to face uncomfortable truths, humility to acknowledge personal flaws, and strength to make meaningful changes. Someone who consistently refuses responsibility chooses the opposite path. They sacrifice honesty for image, growth for pride, and trust for temporary comfort, leaving behind damaged relationships, unresolved conflicts, and a trail of people who slowly learned that accountability would never come from the person who caused the harm. One of the most overlooked signs of a truly evil person is not what they say or even what they do in a single moment, but how you consistently feel after spending time with them. Your mind feels heavier, your emotions become more unstable, and the peace you once had begins to disappear. While every relationship has occasional disagreements or stressful moments, there is a significant difference between temporary conflict and a person whose presence repeatedly drains your energy. A truly evil person leaves you emotionally exhausted because they constantly consume your attention, your patience, and your inner strength without giving genuine care or support in return. Human energy is more than physical strength. It includes your mental focus, emotional balance, confidence, motivation, and sense of purpose. Healthy relationships usually strengthen these qualities. After talking to someone who genuinely cares about you, you often feel understood, encouraged, or inspired. Even difficult conversations can leave you feeling lighter because honesty creates clarity. A toxic person has the opposite effect. Every interaction seems to create more confusion, more stress, and more emotional weight than before. At first, you may not recognize what is happening. You simply notice that you feel unusually tired after spending time with them. Conversations that should last a few minutes somehow leave you mentally exhausted for hours. You replay every word in your mind, wondering whether you said something wrong or whether you misunderstood their intentions. This constant overthinking slowly steals your peace because your mind never gets the chance to rest. One reason this happens is that truly evil people often create unnecessary emotional drama. Calm situations somehow become complicated whenever they are involved. A simple disagreement turns into a personal attack. A small misunderstanding becomes a major conflict. Instead of solving problems, they create new ones because emotional chaos gives them attention and control. While everyone else is trying to restore peace, they quietly benefit from being at the center of every situation. Another common behavior is constant criticism. They rarely acknowledge your progress or appreciate your efforts. Instead, they focus on your mistakes, your weaknesses, or the things you have not yet achieved. Even when they offer compliments, those compliments often contain hidden insults. They may praise you while subtly reminding you of your flaws, leaving you uncertain whether you should feel encouraged or discouraged. Over time, this pattern weakens your confidence because your achievements never seem good enough. A truly evil person also has a way of making your problems feel insignificant while making their own problems seem overwhelming. Whenever you share something difficult, they quickly redirect the conversation back to themselves. Your emotions receive little attention unless they somehow benefit them. This creates a relationship where your emotional needs are consistently ignored, while you are expected to provide endless understanding for theirs. They often demand far more than they are willing to give. They expect loyalty, but rarely show it themselves. They ask for honesty while hiding the truth. They expect patience while becoming impatient with everyone else. They want forgiveness without changing their behavior. These double standards slowly drain your emotional energy because the relationship becomes completely unbalanced. You invest more and more while receiving less and less in return. Another reason they destroy your peace is through unpredictability. You never know which version of them you will encounter. One day they are friendly and supportive. The next day they become cold, critical, or distant for reasons they refuse to explain. This inconsistency keeps your nervous system constantly alert. Instead of feeling safe, you begin analyzing every conversation, every message, and every facial expression, trying to predict what mood they might be in next. Living with this uncertainty creates emotional fatigue. Your mind remains focused on avoiding conflict instead of enjoying life. You become careful with every word you speak, because even harmless comments can somehow trigger another argument. Gradually, you stop expressing your true thoughts, not because you have nothing to say, but because peace feels easier than honesty. A truly evil person may also isolate you from the things that once brought you happiness. They criticize your friends, question your family, discourage your hobbies, or make you feel guilty for spending time away from them. At first, these requests may seem small or reasonable, but over time, your world becomes smaller while their influence becomes larger. The activities and relationships that once gave you energy slowly disappear, leaving you increasingly dependent on the very person who is draining you. Another warning sign is that your self-confidence begins to fade without any obvious reason. Before meeting them, you trusted your decisions and believed in your abilities. After months or years around them, you begin doubting yourself constantly. You seek reassurance for simple choices. You hesitate before speaking. You question your own value because their words and actions have slowly convinced you that you are never quite enough. They also create an atmosphere where relaxation becomes impossible. Even during peaceful moments, you feel as though something negative could happen at any time. Instead of feeling calm, your body remains tense. Your thoughts race through possible arguments, misunderstandings, or disappointments before they even occur. This constant emotional tension affects every part of life, including your work, your relationships, your sleep, and your ability to enjoy ordinary moments. One of the most painful aspects of this experience is that you often blame yourself for the exhaustion. You believe you simply need to be more patient, more understanding, or more forgiving. You work harder to improve the relationship while the other person continues behaving exactly the same way. Because you focus on changing yourself, you fail to recognize that the real source of your emotional depletion is the environment they continuously create. People with healthy intentions usually want those around them to grow stronger, more confident, and more peaceful. They celebrate your success, respect your boundaries, and encourage your independence. A truly evil person often does the opposite because your confidence reduces their control. The stronger you become, the harder you are to manipulate. The more peaceful your mind becomes, the less influence they have over your emotions. Protecting your peace is not selfish. It is one of the most important responsibilities you have. Your mental and emotional energy shape every decision you make, every relationship you build, and every goal you pursue. When someone repeatedly leaves you feeling anxious, exhausted, uncertain, and emotionally empty, their presence is revealing something their words may never admit. The greatest damage they cause is not always visible from the outside, but it can quietly weaken your spirit until surviving each day feels more familiar than truly living with confidence, clarity, and inner peace. Perhaps the most dangerous sign of a truly evil person is that they rarely appear evil in the beginning. If cruelty always announced itself openly, protecting yourself would be easy. The greatest threat comes from people who hide their true nature behind charm, kindness, confidence, and generosity. They understand that people naturally trust those who make them feel comfortable. Instead of revealing their intentions immediately, they carefully build an image that attracts admiration, lowers suspicion, and opens the door to deeper influence. When you first meet them, they often seem almost too good to be true. They know how to make people feel important. They give compliments that sound sincere, remember small details about your life, and show interest in your goals and dreams. They appear attentive, respectful, and emotionally intelligent. Because first impressions are powerful, most people assume these qualities reflect genuine character. In reality, for an evil person, charm is often a carefully chosen strategy rather than an honest expression of who they are. They quickly learn what others want to hear. If someone values loyalty, they present themselves as loyal. If another person admires confidence, they appear fearless. If kindness earns trust, they become exceptionally caring. They adjust their personality depending on the situation because their objective is not authenticity but acceptance. Their behavior changes to match the expectations of the people around them, making it difficult to recognize who they truly are. This ability to wear different masks allows them to gain access to people's lives with remarkable ease. Friends trust them, coworkers admire them, family members welcome them. Even strangers often describe them as polite and pleasant. The positive reputation they create becomes another layer of protection, because when someone eventually notices their darker behavior, others struggle to believe it. They only know the charming version that has been carefully presented to the world. One of their greatest strengths is patience. They do not rush to reveal their controlling or manipulative behavior. They understand that trust takes time to build, so they invest weeks, months, or even years creating a positive image. During this period, they avoid obvious conflicts, offer help when it benefits them, and consistently appear reliable. Once they believe your trust is secure, their behavior gradually begins to change. The change is rarely sudden. Instead, it happens through small actions that seem easy to excuse. They become slightly more critical. They occasionally ignore your feelings. They begin testing your boundaries to see how much you will tolerate. Because the earlier version of them seemed so kind, you convince yourself these behaviors are temporary. You focus on remembering who they used to be instead of recognizing who they are becoming. Another common characteristic is selective kindness. They treat certain people with extraordinary warmth while treating others with quiet disrespect. You may notice that they are incredibly polite to influential individuals, but impatient with those who have less power. They show generosity when others are watching, but become cold and dismissive in private. Their kindness depends on whether it serves their interests rather than reflecting genuine compassion. A truly evil person is also highly skilled at managing their public image. They know exactly when to smile, when to speak softly, and when to appear humble. They understand that reputation can become a powerful shield against accountability. If someone later accuses them of manipulation or cruelty, many people immediately respond, "That doesn't sound like them." The carefully crafted image becomes stronger than the experiences of the people they have harmed. Another warning sign is inconsistency between words and actions. They frequently speak about honesty while lying without hesitation. They praise loyalty while betraying others for personal gain. They talk about kindness while quietly humiliating people behind closed doors. Their language sounds admirable, but their behavior consistently reveals different values. Wise people learn to observe actions more carefully than promises, because character is demonstrated through behavior, not speeches. These individuals often perform acts of generosity that come with invisible conditions. They help others, offer gifts, or provide support, but later expect complete loyalty in return. If someone disagrees with them, they quickly remind them of everything they have supposedly done. Their kindness becomes a form of investment designed to create future control rather than an act of genuine selflessness. They are also remarkably skilled at appearing calm during conflict. While others become emotional, they maintain a composed and reasonable tone. To outside observers, they seem mature and rational. But beneath that calm exterior, They may be quietly manipulating the conversation, leaving out important facts, twisting details, or provoking emotional reactions that make the other person appear unstable. Their calmness is sometimes less about wisdom and more about maintaining control of how others perceive the situation. One reason so many people remain trapped by charming individuals is because they become attached to the image they first encountered. They continue hoping that the kind, thoughtful, and generous person from the beginning will return. Unfortunately, that version may have been carefully designed to gain trust rather than reveal genuine character. Instead of accepting the reality unfolding before them, they remain loyal to a memory that no longer matches the present. Another revealing pattern is how they react when no one is watching. Character is not defined by behavior in public, but by behavior in private. A person with genuine integrity treats people with respect, regardless of status, recognition, or personal benefit. A truly evil person often behaves very differently once they believe there will be no consequences. Their patience disappears, their compassion fades, and the charming mask slowly slips away. Over time, small contradictions begin to form a much larger picture. The compliments feel less sincere, the promises become less reliable, the kindness appears more selective, the generosity starts carrying hidden expectations, the confidence begins revealing arrogance, the warmth slowly transforms into emotional distance. Each individual incident may seem insignificant on its own, but together they expose a consistent pattern that cannot be ignored. The greatest mistake people make is believing that charm and goodness are the same thing. They are not. Charm is a skill that can be learned. Kind words can be memorized. Smiles can be practiced. Confidence can be performed. True character reveals itself through consistency, honesty, humility, and the way someone treats others when there is nothing to gain. A truly evil person may successfully imitate kindness for a season, but no one can wear a mask forever. Eventually, repeated actions expose the reality, hidden beneath the appearance, and the difference between genuine goodness and carefully manufactured charm becomes impossible to ignore.